We've already covered case classifications in the NVivo for Windows Fundamentals course. As you can see, we've created a case node for each person in the study and coded the data we have so far for each person into the case node. We then created a case classification type for people and created the attributes age and gender. We assigned the classification type people to some of the case nodes, and then opened the case classification sheet and assigned the values of the two attributes, age and gender. While case classifications are linked to our units of analysis, source classifications are about the characteristics of our sources. So if we're doing a literature review, you would have a source classification type of reference, which would have the attributes type of reference, date of publication, author, and so on. In this project, we could have two types of sources, interviews and newspaper articles. So we can create two types of classification, one for interviews and one for newspaper articles. In the navigation view, I'm selecting the Source Classifications folder. Then, on the Create tab, I'm selecting Source Classification. I'll name it Interviews. Now I'll create another source classification type and name it Newspaper Articles. Now I'll create source attributes for interviews by selecting the classification, then right-clicking to choose New Attribute. I'll name the attribute Interviewer. Its type is the default, text. And I'll add the following values by clicking the Attribute Values tab. Then Add. The values are Henry, Linda, Nancy, and Elizabeth. Once I've added all of the values, I can click OK. I'll create a second attribute for interviews and call it Date. And change the type. I don't need to create the values beforehand. I can add them when I assign the values to the sources. I'll now create an attribute for newspaper articles. I first select the newspaper articles classification type, click on Create, then Attribute. I'll name it Reporter, and the type is text. I'll create another one called Newspaper, and another for publication date. Now in the navigation view, I'll select my folder for interviews. Then in the list view, I select all the interviews holding my Shift key. By right-clicking over the list, I select Classification, then select Interviews. Next, I select the News Articles folder. Select the articles and right-click over them to select Classification. Then select Newspaper Articles. To assign values, I'll open the classification sheet for interviews. I can use the drop-down arrow to select the values I've already entered, or type in new values. We'll talk more about attributes and their role in analysis as we discuss queries.